silent giant drifting 34,000 feet above the clouds. A massive Boeing 737 filled with 121 souls, all of them fast asleep, yet none of them will ever wake up. This is not a scene from a horror movie. This is the chilling, heart-wrenching true story of Helios Airways Flight 522, famously known as the ghost plane of Greece. On August 14, 2005, what started as a routine holiday flight from Cyprus to Athens turned into the most haunting mystery in aviation history. The tragedy actually began on the ground, long before the engines even started. A ground engineer had conducted a routine pressure leak check and mistakenly left the cabin pressure switch in manual mode instead of auto. As the aircraft climbed higher into the thin, freezing atmosphere, the air inside the cabin began to vanish, molecule by molecule. The pilots, confused by a warning horn they misunderstood as a takeoff configuration error, didn't realize they were slowly losing their minds to hypoxia, a state where the brain is starved of oxygen. One by one, the passengers, the cabin crew, and eventually the pilots themselves drifted into a deep, permanent unconsciousness. Within minutes, 121 people were slumped over in their seats, leaving the high-tech aircraft flying on autopilot, a massive steel tomb wandering aimlessly through the sky. For over an hour, ground control desperately tried to radio the cockpit, but they were met with a terrifying, hollow silence. Fearing a terrorist hijacking, the Greek Air Force scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets to intercept the silent plane. As the jet pilots pulled alongside Flight 522, they witnessed a sight that would haunt their dreams forever. Through the windows, they saw rows of passengers motionless, oxygen masks dangling from the ceiling, and a co-pilot collapsed over the controls. The plane was a ghost ship, heading straight toward the heavily populated city of Athens with enough fuel to cause a catastrophe. But then, a shadow moved in the darkness of the cockpit. The F-16 pilots watched in absolute disbelief as a lone figure entered the flight deck. It was Andreas Prodromou, a 25-year-old flight attendant and a trainee pilot who had managed to stay conscious using portable oxygen tanks. For the final agonizing 30 minutes of his life, Andreas sat in the pilot's seat, watching his friends and colleagues lifeless around him, desperately fighting to take control of the doomed airliner. His weak, trembling voice was caught on the radio crying, "Mayday!" but his signal was too faint to be heard. With both engines eventually failing due to fuel exhaustion, Andreas used his very last bit of human strength to steer the massive aircraft away from the crowded city, crashing instead into the deserted hills of Grammatico. There were no survivors, but Andreas's final act of bravery prevented a much larger disaster, saving thousands of lives on the ground. To this day, the story of Helios 522 remains a haunting reminder that in the vastness of the sky, a single human error can turn a journey into a nightmare that never ends. Subscribe to Unseen Evidence to know what you don't.